hour. Louisville still at 4 minutes after the hour. As you head towards St. Matthews, about 10 minutes, still on track. And as you head toward J-Town, about 16 minutes after the hour, they mentioned to Fern Creek. I know there are downpours popping in advance of the slime. These are not severe that are popping up in advance of it here. This is the main line still. The wind fields, main issue here, especially right there into Corydon. Now, here's the problem. The radar beams at Fort Knox. This is getting awful close to it, so it becomes much more of a challenge to pick out what is happening in that area. Let's show the storm tracker because we've got them on 64. He's about to get to a safe spot there, not far away from Corydon at the moment. But that is where we had some of the stronger wind fields. And even with the radar beam being that close into Fort Knox, we're still able to see some very strong winds showing up, at least on the beam itself, and some general rotation. But we haven't seen anything confirmed on this. We even had storm spotters that have been out that they've reported, yes, they have seen some rotation, but no one has witnessed a funnel cloud or anything like that. As always the case in this, you just got to be careful just in case and take that precaution as the line moves to the area. We're not seeing as strong of a wind field on the southern portion of this, but still it is a wall of winds, the best way I can describe it. That will be the case as it heads toward I-65. So this is going to impact a lot of people as far as strong wind gusts in general, but it's certainly going to be right on the northern side here of the Louisville Metro as that pocket continues to move right over New Albany here in the next few minutes. Let me see if I can punch up New Albany real quick on the SkyTrack camera. I may be able to see it pop in here in a second because we got the line moving in toward downtown. I'll try to adjust it, but it's heading right into the city at the moment into New Albany. So the flags have actually changed direction. They were blowing the other way not long ago. Look at that. What we call this is a mesocyclone, and that is a very impressive one with the shelf cloud there showing up. Look how low that is to the ground. This is where it gets really ominous looking, but it just mainly means the dew point is very high at that point. But this, Kevin, is the area you got to watch as it approaches, especially off to the right side there.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. You can see that sort of low-hanging cloud, the sort of shelf, if you will, of that mesocyclone as it moves closer to us. Let's zoom it out just a bit more. There you go. And maybe just a little bit more.
It's far out on Zoom, but
to the left.
I'll call that. Yeah, I'm kind of scanning back and forth. Not seeing anything on the rain-free base part yet.
Right, and then back this way and hold tight.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to check. Again, we can note that the winds are increasing. We have cameras that have been tracking this storm, both that are in fixed positions. We have 10 of our SkyTrack cameras strategically placed. This is one. This one over in New Albany. We are looking as those storms move into New Albany. We have the tornado warning that includes areas just north of New Albany. And as we zoom back in, I just want to point out that it's all along this line. The embedded pockets of heavy wind could have the potential, and you can see new severe thunderstorm warnings coming out, and that will include areas to our south, including LaRue County, including places down across southern Hardin County. As we go to the thunderstorm warning, for some reason, my clicker, there we go. And the latest on the severe thunderstorm warning to our south. Now, back to the tornado warning, we pointed out that through Corydon and Lanesville would be going right into the New Albany area and just north of that zone. That would be one we're also watching. I'm going to go back to the home view, and then we'll go through each one once again. The only tornado warning we have embedded along this entire line is the one that's across southern Indiana. It clips right into northern parts of Floyd County. A good chunk of Floyd County, in fact. Let me go back and just put on the velocity. As we scan this, you can see where the strongest winds are moving right now through Lanesville, pocket of heavy wind. Georgetown next on standby. New Albany would be next after that. So you have just seconds now to get in your tornado safe place. If you can hear my voice, you need to be, if you're in Floyd County in particular, and moving across the far eastern parts of Harrison County from Crandall down to Lanesville, you've got to be in your tornado safe place. These are strong winds. We've had no actual reports of tornadoes, but we have had some reports of some damage. And we're looking at our information from what we call MPING. These are some of our damage reports coming in. Obviously, we've had trash cans and twigs blown around, some tree limbs, some snapped trees of larger dimension from Owensboro, and that's just been out to our west. So we can expect that will be moving through our area as well. As Brian mentioned earlier, that tornado safe place is the lowest level. It's inside, typically an interior room. Oftentimes it's a bathroom, could be a closet, could be a hallway. It just needs to be away from windows inside. We've had the alert day, and we were outlooked by the Storm Prediction Center as an enhanced risk area. Then the watch came out today. Now we're in the warning phase, and this means that it's happening. If you have the warning for your area, you have to seek shelter. The weather is moving in. Brian?
All right, Kevin, I've noticed here as we look at the SkyTrack camera, that's going to be the middle image there just below me. That's the area we're watching for the broad rotation. Now, when we look at the actual radar, one thing that's interesting too, by the way, is looking at the camera. Let me pan back over. Notice the flags are blowing to the left. That tells me that there is a strong northeast wind right now into downtown New Albany. Now, look at the radar. Let me show you what that would mean. If you got a strong northeast wind showing up across Floyd County, that tells me you've got a general broad, at least broad right now, circulation that is right over the southwest corner there of Floyd County heading in. Now, again, I don't see anything right now that screams that this is a tornado. It does tell me, though, this is a very much a what we call a mature cyclone, where it's got the strong rotation field that is broad. We don't want this to tighten up more than what is showing. That's going to be the key signal if anything can develop as far as the funnel cloud. But at the moment, this is the spot to watch. Don't see it, but those clouds or the flags themselves are certainly blowing faster and faster as that stronger northeast flow kicks in. Can we show the velocity wind there on the radar? Let me show you that, where you can see that visually, what we're looking at. And again, it's right there over New Albany that we're talking about with that stronger flow coming in from the northeast, wrapping around. We'll see how that plays out over the next few moments, but it's that spot here on graphics too. If we can show that, you can see what that rotation is over Floyd County heading in right over the Georgetown area. And again, this is the spot just west of New Albany. We'll see how that plays out, but this whole thing is rotating. That's the reason really for the tornado warning is you got to take precautions to set up, because it doesn't take much to get a funnel cloud to be produced out of that. And as I mentioned before, these kind of incidents happen really, really fast. And that's the reason why you got to stay ahead of the game the best you can. That's why they have a tornado warning out. Kevin, I'll be watching this camera carefully. Certainly, it's got that ominous look to it.
Yeah, and I tell you, we've already had reports of tornado, of funnel clouds coming from this exact storm. So it's not out of the question that that could happen again as it continues to move right toward New Albany, very populated area, southern Indiana.
They just upgraded Louisville's warning to wind gust potential to 70 miles per hour now.
Okay, so it's still a severe thunderstorm warning for Louisville, but the wind threat or the wind conditions have been increased just a bit on that warning. We have warnings all the way from Louisville all the way down to the state line. The tornado warning continues for Floyd County. Let's zoom back in. We want to make sure that if you are in the path of any of these storms, you're away from windows and in your tornado safe place. The one that shows the greatest potential for rotation happens to be the one over in southern Indiana. Lots of lightning with all of these storms as well. When we look at the velocity on this storm, it gives us where we have the pocket of heavy wind. Now, we've lost the blues out of that, where we did have even stronger winds, but nonetheless, moving very much toward New Albany. While it seems to be easing, it could just be in a little bit of a cycle. Sometimes we note that happens. Regardless, you're going to see that New Albany's picking up with wind, and that's going to be pushing right toward the downtown Louisville area as well. Some of that heavy wind moving right into Louisville.
Yeah, in fact, let me show the velocity there in Jefferson County. You got a little bit there in the bottom of your screen on the bottom left. Let me show you the SkyTrack. It's getting very close to Louisville International. So again, that's the southern portion of the broad rotation we're seeing, but that eastern push there, let me pull up the camera. You'll be able to kick it in here. Give me 1 second. You'll see a live look there, Ollie. And again, that's where that strong push is just now approaching right over portions. I would say near Fairdale Valley Station area, Iroquois Park. That's exactly where that push is, heading right in the airport. Again, that's where we could see that wind potential to get close to 70 miles per hour. That's what the warning's out for. I'm watching the wind reports out of Ollie International. We get those about every 5 minutes, Kevin. So far, I haven't seen anything to that level, but it hasn't gotten quite to the sensor yet, but it's getting awful close.
Yeah, and it may take just a minute for it to kick in for us, but I'm sure those winds exploding as they move very much close to the airport. That's this pocket that Brian's watching here. Obviously, to the north, this storm is moving at 55 miles an hour to the east, so pretty good in the forward motion on that, too. That's going to bring some very strong winds through New Albany, right into parts of southern Clark County, from Jeff up towards Sellersburg. But some of the stronger winds at this point may be bound between the Watterson and the Gene Snyder, pushing as you move from PRP over toward Okolona and moving off to the east. So a pretty good blast of wind.
E-Town 56 right now on the Mesonet.
Okay, so that was 56 miles per hour on the Mesonet down in E-Town. Again, let's just zoom back out. It's important to point out that while a lot of focus is given to the tornado warning, these strong winds exist along this entire line. So I can tell you, anywhere along that line has the potential for some of the strong winds, and that would be anywhere from southern Clark County through all of Jefferson County, especially as you work your way approaching Okolona, moving to the south through Bullitt County, moving across a good chunk of Hardin County, western parts of Nelson County, and eventually into the western parts of LaRue County. All of those places I just mentioned have the opportunity to see some very strong winds. We have a number of folks out with cameras. You can see this image just off to my side showing, again, ominous-looking clouds, some of them low, some of them producing heavy rain, all of them producing some gusty winds as they move through the area. Let's take a closer view of what's happening through the metro, and back to our full screen version we go. And I'll be able to zoom in on many of these that happen as they move into parts of southern Indiana.
78 miles per hour, Louisville.
78 miles per hour. Now we're going to start to see power outages. That's enough. We've seen that time and again. We start to get anything north of 60 plus miles an hour, power outages become an issue. So let me go back. I know we've been talking about a lot about, and we've just taken the power hit downtown. So all of our equipment sort of resets. We are still with you, and we'll get the everything back up in the studio. I'll ask the engineers to come in here and help us reset as we continue with our continuing coverage to be able to see what's happening in the Louisville area. Once again, these are strong, severe winds. When we look at this velocity, I'm going to zoom in super tight here so you can see what's happening. Again, I cannot stress enough, even if you're not in the tornado warning, the winds are strong. We mentioned they would be coming right toward downtown Louisville. We just took a hit here. Let's pan down this entire line, anywhere from Blackenston Mill, heavy wind. Portland, strong wind. Jeffersonville, Louisville, the strongest of the winds through Iroquois Park, moving toward Okolona, GE Appliance Park. This is the area where we're seeing strong winds now approaching. Brian's just mentioned we've had 78 mile per hour winds at the airport all the way through southern Jefferson County. We're starting to get more reports of damage coming in as we work our way into Bullitt County. Yes, still powerful winds from Barrelton down to Pitts Point, approaching Shepherdsville. I-65 would be the corridor to watch for approaching winds, including Shepherdsville, Bardstown Junction, Lebanon Junction, as this moves in. Very strong winds exist all along this line. They are damaging winds upwards of 60 miles an hour. They will cause some problems. They will cause some power outages. Brian, I've just gone down that entire line.
Yeah.
Give us an idea of what you have.
Okay, well, obviously, this is like 1 mile per hour off from what happened on March 3rd. Remarkable that we're talking about this again, and literally about a month later. The strong winds, and it's 78 miles per hour. 60 is the threshold, or 58 for a warning. That can cause damage. You get up to over 70, you got problems. They decided to go ahead because of that gust of 78 miles per hour at all international areas around Okolona, into Fern Creek, and J-Town. Your potential now for your wind gust could get up to 80 miles per hour. They want to make sure they stress that. That is the potential this line will have. So if you're in J-Town, Linden, Hurstbourne Parkway area, all the way into Fern Creek, even Mount Washington, this is the core of the wind. We really got to watch. And I'll kind of loop this just over the past few moments. They went ahead and obviously they're going to extend the warning out because this is moving fast. So the severe thunderstorm warning that's going to keep going to the north and east. FYI, we haven't had any reports, anything, by the way, on the tornado side of things from that cell that was in Floyd County there.
So, Brian,
Yeah.
a lot of folks are hearing the alerts going off
Right, on the phones and everywhere.
for their emergency alerts. The reason why is because of the warning that's been issued with what we would call the destructive tag. It's rare that we see that, but that happens when you get winds forecast up to or over 80 miles an hour. This just means that, hey, if you are in Jefferson County, and especially from I-65 to the east, because the strongest part of the storm's already moved across western Jefferson County, you have to be in your safe place. You need to get away from windows. This is going to push a blast of wind in. We've already measured it at the airport where it was over 78 miles an hour. And again, you can hear the alerts going off, but that is just an idea of the powerful wind that we have moving across Jefferson County. Brian, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to explain while my alarms were going off.
We just don't see that very often, so I understand that. That sound in general is scary just to even hear it. So as we mentioned, this is not exactly a tornado setup. It's strong winds, but still, having said that, this is one of those setups that could still feature a quick spin up that can happen. Right now, looking at the strong wind fields, let's look at this on the radar side, and you got to keep in mind this is moving at 70 miles per hour. That's fast. The radar itself can take up to 6 minutes to do a full scan, so there's a bit of a delay here. But the last report on the scan we got, it was right over Seneca High School as far as the strong wind fields were, now likely east of there. So I would say it's right along Hurstbourne Parkway, heading into, I would say, as you head toward Lynn Station Road area, J-Town, Billtown Road, Electron Drive, all the way along Bardstown Road, certainly into Fern Creek, Gardner Lane area. It just passed GE not too long ago, and Moore High School, certainly another strong pocket that's very close to the Highview area. Looks like it's east now, Preston Highway, very close to Smyrna Parkway, heading toward Beulah Church, to the east of Beulah Church, very close to Bardstown Road area, all the way into, I would say, J-Town. That entire section here is we're watching for the wind field that could get up to 80 miles per hour. Now, you got to keep in mind, we do not have sensors in all areas across Jefferson County. We do have one in St. Matthews, and I've been waiting to see if the airport there would trigger. I haven't seen anything yet, Kevin, but that's still possible. But that would give us a good indicator of how the northern part's doing. So right now, it looks like it's that central and southern portion that's the most destructive.
So Bowman Field is the sensor Brian's mentioning out of St. Matthews. Yeah. We'll get some real-time reports from that. Seneca High School, as this moves over toward Springville Road, it will take it just south of Hurstbourne. It's going to move it right into J-Town. So that's an area where we're really going to have to pay close attention. I've zoomed into the strongest pockets. There are a couple of them from Seneca down to Appliance Park. Again, as Brian pointed out, moving off to the east, sometimes these images are slower than what the forward motion is for us. So they're a little delayed. Nonetheless, we're going to keep you updated. Fern Creek, you're no stranger to the strong wind. You've got to be on guard. This is moving toward you. This is all moving to the east. J-Town would be next in line. Forest Hills, areas around Hurstbourne, all seeing this push through, including St. Regis Park. So from Seneca High School, GE, on to J-Town, that's the zone of most concern right now in Jefferson County. As we move south of the Gene Snyder, McNeely Lake seeing a pocket of heavy wind. These develop fairly fast. Another one developing right over Hillview. This is going to take it across the county line as it moves toward Glen Mary. So those folks will be experiencing some very strong wind as well. Moving down into Bullitt County, not far from the I-65 corridor from Hebron Estates, pushing on down to Shepherdsville. Moving farther south, Bardstown Junction, that's just south of Shepherdsville. You also are seeing some very strong winds. They ease up just a bit south of there. These are all very hyper-local places that we're mentioning along 480 and 44 if you're in Bullitt County. Lifting back into Jefferson County, if you're toward McNeely Lake, if you are along 265, the Gene Snyder, as you work your way from I-65 out toward Glen Mary?
Actually, right there at Smyrna at the Weather Service office, they reached 59 officially by the way there.
Okay, so yet again, another blast of wind that's above severe limits. We've seen these pockets continue to put down some very strong winds, and you can see the latest or the strongest that we've had, 78 miles an hour, and that's coming out of Louisville International. Now, again, we still don't know what Bowman Field has had, but it's got to be some strong winds coming through there as well. I'm going to zoom back out as we go to to our home view here. Again, cameras all across the metro showing what's happening. We've seen the wind. We technically still have the tornado warning, but frankly, our winds probably have been stronger than what the tornado warning has realized. These strong winds go all the way down to the south. You're looking at our SkyTrack camera. This one situated down in Elizabethtown. And again, strong winds have pushed through there. The brunt of this storm continues to move along and now moving east of the I-65 corridor. That's what we have going on at this point. The radar view shows sort of that wall of wind and water moving in. Behind it, more rain, but a little less intense on the wind, and that's some good news. The bad news is right along the leading edge, we have severe wind potential, and we've seen it in a number of places. We've noted the power outages continue to go up, and that just means those 78-mile-per-hour winds have done a number on what we have going on across the area. I'm going to zoom back into the metro. I'm going to put on some of the reports that we've had. First of all, let's go back in and let's just mention this warning that we have for Jefferson County. When you look at this one, again, the tornado possible tag, the destructive wind tag, wind potential up to 80 miles an hour. That would include parts of Bullock, Clark, Jefferson, and Oldham counties. That's one storm that we're watching. Again, we have had some damage out of that storm to the radar view. And now let's take a look at some of the reports that we have. When we check reports, we can look at a number of sources. These will come from the Weather Service. There have been none actually cataloged yet at this point. When we look at some of the other reports, these are viewer reports. We can look at the wind. We can check the metro. We have had some limbs that have been snapped, trash cans that have been blown, in some cases branches over an inch in diameter that have been broken. So we do have obviously wind strong enough at 78 miles an hour to cause some problems. That's one area that we've been watching as it continues to move through. Brian, I know you have other power outages.
Yeah, that's something we're watching, and this is going to be a bit delayed, but certainly the number is starting to go up, certainly in Breckenridge County, around the Hardinsburg areas of the county seat area that we're talking about. But 3,100 customers right now, it's 21% of the county that is currently without power. Into Louisville, this is going to change. 49 customers. Guarantee you that will change. Well, it takes a bit of time to update. We'll let you know. Down into Hardin County, 2% of the county, about 1,100 people right now without power into that area. So as this line moves off here quickly to the east, I've been checking some of the gauges that we do have, say Bullock County into portions there of Shelby County. I've yet to see anything too strong yet compared to what Louisville International did pick up. You got to keep in mind all the international big wide open area. So when a wind field gets established like that into Floyd County and kind of cross right in from Harrison and Floyd right into the central portion there of Jefferson County, it was a wide open area. That wind field is going to slam, certainly when it comes to the wind speed getting up there over 75 miles per hour and got up to that 78, actually 78.3 for being technical. Remember, March 3rd, 79 miles per hour. And that was just a little over a month ago, Kevin.
All right, Brian, we're getting information coming in out of Owensboro. We're receiving 66 mile per hour that we've known. Ours happens to be one of the strongest wind gusts we've seen today. The National Weather Service is going to go with a small tornado warning for circulation in eastern Jefferson County. So we'll prepare for that warning now by looking. We also have Justin Hilliard, who was an intern here. He is a meteorologist. He's out chasing. This is one of the cameras that we have availability of, and he is out chasing this storm as well. I'll point out the new tornado warning includes eastern Jefferson County, and we're not alone on this warning. It's going to stretch across parts of several counties, including, well, we go back to that source. Let's bring it full so I can see it.
It's right over the malls, actually.
Yes, so this takes it from, yes, indeed. That would be the Linden area where we see the greatest circulation on that. And I'm going to go back to the velocity because that helps us so much. And that's where we see that rotation. So right over, as Brian pointed out, the malls, whether that's the Oxmoor, the Mall St. Matthews, right in that general vicinity, pushing through Middletown, going to take it across southern parts of Oldham County, extreme northern parts of Shelby County. This is north of Shelbyville. This is north of Simpsonville, a narrow area and corridor where we see some rotation showing up on the radar. Once again, what we're looking at on this with the warning happens to be the tornado warning that has just been issued for Jefferson County, and that includes eastern Jefferson County. and that will continue to push off to the east. That storm likewise moving off to the east at 55 miles per hour. Mentioning the chase vehicles that we have on this storm, we have seen nothing actually touch down at this point, but we continue to watch the feeds coming in from our storm chasers, including our own storm tracker and Justin, who is out chasing, and we continue to watch those pushing off to the north and east. This is a blast of strong winds, the same one that put 78-mile-per-hour winds at the airport, and it continues to move with some rotation. All radar indicated from St. Matthews, the Linden area, now pushing toward Middletown. Let's go hyper-local and take a look at some of the towns and streets. Brian, I know you're already doing that, so we'll just toss it over to you.
Yeah, I'm trying to get an alert out locally, so hold on one second.
Okay, well, while you do that, because
we're sorry, the screen's blocked on me here. But,
that's all right. The way this is working is obviously it's not just the television audience we're working with. We've got about 20 radio stations that we provide weather for. We're sending out information on our app for people that are just watching that, saying, hey, you've got to be prepared. So let me do that. I can do it from the key, and we're just going to zoom in to this general area. And I'm going to zoom in super tight, and we're going to talk about some of the roads that are impacted by this. If you're in Barrytown, O'Bannon, working your way just south of 71, pushing toward the Crestwood area, say 362 if you're familiar with that, and 146, working through Pee Wee Valley. This is the zone of concern with some of the strongest rotation and wind. That takes it through Worthington Hills. Places of note might be Chamberlain Lane, Willow Forest Drive, pushing over across the county line from Orchard Grass Hills down toward Floydsburg. This means as you push even farther to the east, that would take it past Crestwood, Floydsburg, eventually pushing along Old Floydsburg Road, Chapel Drive, West Mount Zion Road. Those are just a few places, as we've mentioned, that could be in the path of this storm. Lots of lightning with these storms as well. We pointed that out. The most concern is the wind. We've already had 79 or 78 mile per hour winds reported in the city with this. Again, we keep taking power hits here at the station, an indication that the wind is still strong across much of the area. And that's going to be the case along this entire Boeing segment that we have pushing through. Back to the velocity, because really it tells the story. It's the sort of odd colors that we look for within that. And let me go back, because you'll notice in some areas we just have the pockets of strong wind. Fern Creek would be one area, strong wind. While we have some strong wind in Fern Creek, it may not be rotating like it is, so consequently you may not have a tornado warning, but the wind could be even stronger for you than it is in the tornado warning. That's why today's another one of those days where it really doesn't matter what type of warning you're under. You have to pay attention to it because of the strong wind fields we've had. We've said for weeks now, this will go down as being the year of the wind, where we've had so much wind energy in our atmosphere that now we're pulling it down to the ground, and we see these pockets of wind. Fern Creek, you need to be on standby. I'm going to zoom around, sort of pan around, and the tornado warning continues. It's not a tight rotation, but there is some rotation there, now pushing just north of Middletown. This would take it across the Lake Forest area, and as it moves into far western parts of Shelby County, similar to where we saw some of the damage and the tornado touchdown. And we're talking about Polo Fields, we're talking about Aiken Road, we're talking about all those areas that saw some damage from Friday night, Saturday morning storm. You're seeing some of the strongest winds now. That will continue to move very much near the border of Jefferson, Oldham, and Shelby. Strong winds also pushing to the south, and we see the warning sort of getting redrawn for northern Spencer and almost all of Shelby County, including eastern Jefferson County. That's a severe thunderstorm warning that will continue until 5:45. That's because, again, the pocket of heavy wind having the potential to produce those 80-mile-per-hour winds as this moves off to the east, roughly at about 55 to 60 miles an hour. Brian?
All right. In fact, I'm keeping an eye on our camera there. It's in Simpsonville. That's going to be on the northern fringe of where that is trying to bow out there. You see it tracking right over the Fisherville area, that pocket of wind. This is strong circulation. You got to look at it in a much more broader scope there as it moves into eastern areas of Jefferson County. You can see it pushing in northeast wind, moving across Oldham County, then a very strong push right there into eastern Jefferson, now crossing into the Shelby County area as well. But it's right in the middle of that, over Eastwood, heading right into the triple point. Actually, about the same spot where the EF1 was confirmed just a couple of days ago, Kevin. That's about the general spot we're looking at. But that's just still a relatively broad rotation that we are talking about. The SkyTrack camera, let me see if we can show that. That is actually at the outlets in Simpsonville. I've got it aimed right now to the south. It is going to get difficult to see much of anything out of this image at all because it is going to be raining so hard. But I will keep it on. If we can look at that real quick there on the SkyTrack camera, you'll be able to see the approach there of the actual rain band and the strong wind fields. This is probably going to be an image that's going to change really fast here in the next few moments because it's literally about, I would say, less than a quarter mile down the road right now from that spot on 64.
All right, getting reports of Jefferson County just south of the Waterson. This is going to be very close to the Newburgh area where we have trees down, pieces of roofs that have been blown off. So that's coming in from parts of Jefferson County as well. So again, those winds, same pocket. I mean, it's really along that entire line. But this, I hate to always just focus on the tornado warning because while that is certainly important and impressive and deserves being talked about, so does everything else going on. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes the warning for a severe thunderstorm may be out, but it's obvious that the tornado warning takes precedence. Today, it's one of those days where, okay, we have minor rotation with this, could be a tornado, but holy moly, we know we have strong winds here, and that's pushing through now southeast Jefferson County into southwest parts of Shelby County and northern parts of Spencer County. Strong wind. You're looking at the outlet shops of the Bluegrass off to my side. This is a live camera that we have, one of our many SkyTrack cameras that we've been showing you throughout the day. We saw the storm coming into Corydon. We tracked it into New Albany, across Jefferson County, and now we're looking at Simpsonville in far western parts of Shelby County. So we've got you covered on not only seeing it on radar, but actually seeing it visually as the storm moves through. We have had reports of damage in a number of places already. Back to the radar view we go, and you'll notice that as the tornado warning continues, so does the severe thunderstorm warning until 5:45. Looking as this moves to the east, it's moving fast. I mean, we're talking 50 to 60 miles per hour as this storm makes its move out of Jefferson County. We're not out of the woods just yet, but we're getting close, and that means we transition over into parts of Spencer, Shelby, southern parts of Oldham counties for the strongest winds on this. I'm going to go back to the home view just quickly. We can make sure that folks to our south know we're watching them. To our north, you're just seeing rain at this point. No problems right now, southern Indiana. No problems across, if you're west of I-65. It's areas to the south that would be east of I-65. Notice they just trimmed that warning up. That would be most at risk of seeing some of the strongest winds. Let me zoom into all of the areas being impacted right now. We'll start by looking at the new warning that's coming out. This is a severe thunderstorm warning that stretches all the way up into parts of Trimble County and includes all of Oldham County. You can see the outline. That's a severe thunderstorm warning that we have had. And then in the middle of that is where we had some of that rotation. Back to our velocity. And you'll see we still have the rotation. The couplet is very clear. The new warning is being trimmed up. It doesn't go past the old one. They're trimming off the backside of it, but you can see the new polygon for the tornado warning. That would be right across southern parts of Oldham County. As we speak, that's where we have the greatest potential for some of that rotation. Let me zoom into that just to give you a few locations so you know where we're talking about.
And Simpsonville is at 53 now,
so
miles per hour.
Talking about the wind gusts in Simpsonville, where we were showing you the camera, 53 miles an hour. Remember, our wind gust was at 78. We're now at 44. You can see that rotation just south of 71, just to the east of Crestwood, just south of LaGrange. Strongest winds in Oldham County, passing from LaGrange towards Smithfield, and that takes you over into Henry County. So that's a zone, again, of the strongest wind that we have with rotation. Other pockets of strong wind exist farther to the south. Let's roll down. You work your way from Simpsonville down toward Finchville, moving through Seatonville and Fisherville. That's another pocket of heavy wind. That's moving through southern and southwestern parts of Shelby County, extreme northern parts. So if you're on Taylorsville Road going down into Spencer County, very strong winds out of Jefferson County into Spencer. And that's a pocket of heavy wind that's now moving farther to the east, and that's continuing to move across Shelby County. So that was the wind that blasted the outlet shops where we have seen, again, strong winds. Let's go down a little farther. You can see pockets of heavy wind going into Nelson County. There's Fairfield, Bloomfield, Cox's Creek. You'll notice Bardstown, heaviest winds past you. Got away without a whole lot of problems down farther to the south. And while we have other warnings that stretch across southern parts of Nelson County back into LaRue County, the winds are notably less down that way. Going back to our home view, and then I want to go through some of our cameras that we have. We have a number of folks out watching this weather. We've seen reports of some damage coming in, namely down toward Newburgh, where we know we have some trees that have been down, shingles and parts of a roof that have been sort of torn. Let's go to some of our SkyTrack cameras and our other cameras here just to show that the storm tracker is on the road. We appreciate the help of meteorologist Justin Hilliard today, also showing us what's happening in terms of what's it looks like across the metro. And that's important because obviously our bulk of our population is here. We just experienced 78-mile-an-hour winds blasting through. We have a number of areas with power outages. We we still do. Let me go back to our velocity. We're starting to see more and more power outages show up as expected. Brian, why don't we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, well, actually, John Bull was just showing me a message was sent out. It was a part of Fort Knox, right? It was without significant power outage there at the installation there at Fort Knox because of the strong wind field that passed right over the radar beam. It was going to be very difficult to even see that because it was right on top of the radar itself. We were getting a lot of reports of damage that's been happening around Okolona near the airport, especially around Fern Valley and Preston. We are checking that out. We have been getting your calls. We appreciate that. We want you guys to be safe. Got a feeling we're going to be hearing more about what has happened around Okolona, Highview area, all the way in through about St. Matthews and Hurstbourne Parkway. The outage numbers are going to be delayed, but they're starting to go up. Jefferson County is kicking back in once again with some of those higher numbers, something we just don't want to hear about, but that's what a 78-mile-per-hour wind will indeed do passing through. The latest warnings that are out, Kevin talked about the tornado warning, not seeing that circulation nearly as strong. Now it's really just that southern flank there that is moving right across Shelby County. Again, if you were to draw this in a much more broader scope, and it's relatively broad now. So if this continues, this will be a good thing. Hopefully they can let the tornado warning go if future scans confirm this, but still it's a very strong wind field. When you look at this, by the way, this is angling such at a sharp northeast push. I mean, it's racing right into Henry County, right into Owen County, Kentucky, Carroll County. There's no doubt this is a wind field. Once it gets established like this, it just does not want to give up. It's got a lot of forward momentum. It'll keep racing. So you're going to get warnings all the way into the I-75 corridor. So if you're in that area watching, you're able to get our signal and watching on streaming. That strong wind field will keep going in your area. It's going to take a while to get that to slow down. Meanwhile, it does slow the wind down a bit more on the southern side, which is in the central areas of Kentucky. As expected, of course, one thing we can be really thankful for too, Kevin, is a lot of kids are not in school. Rush hour is not as busy. Not as many folks are out on the roadway. That's good, but certainly it's going to be a kind of a mess for the next couple of hours because the wind, even after this, we're still gusting over 40 miles per hour.
Yeah, the wind advisory stays in place until 8 o'clock tonight. So our winds, while they aren't going to be 78 miles an hour, they will still be 30, 35, maybe up to 40 miles an hour at times, even with this light rain going on. So the wind is going to be a slower process to get out of here than the extreme wind and rain on the front edge of this storm system moving through. So that's important to note as well. You can see all across the area, the tornado warning has been allowed to expire, but with severe thunderstorm warnings, with winds up to 80 miles an hour, we're going to stay with you. So we're going to make sure that we keep tracking the pockets of heavy wind through the area, just because of the nature of what we've seen and the environment that these storms are moving through. A lot of times we don't have to jump on with severe thunderstorm warnings. The winds 50, 60 miles an hour, on that marginal threshold, they're moving through. In this case, we've measured 78-mile-per-hour winds. They're pushing through Shelby County, moving out of Oldham County, moving into Henry County. This is the zone of the strongest wind. It's why we're focused on this area more than what's happening in the south. So people that may be in LaRue County, southern Nelson County saying, hey, what about us? Yeah, we're checking and we go back and forth, but the main wind is pushing through this zone right now. Let's take a closer view with the velocity. You're going to see what we're talking about. Pocket of strong wind moving just south of Shelbyville. It's going to be moving right along 64. We have other areas of concern where we've had the rotation. That's been pushing across parts of Henry County, moving right toward the Smithfield area. Strong winds there. Eminence, you're not going to be out of the woods with strong winds. Pockets of wind moving across southern parts of Henry County at this time as well. 55-mile-per-hour winds are now being reported down in Hart County. Remember, we said thunderstorms were going on to the south, but the winds weren't as strong. Still, as we go down this warning here, let's name some places. There's Smithfield, Eminence, Raymond Hill, Shelbyville, still seeing some rain, while the pocket of heaviest rain may be to the south. Where'd we go? Here we are. And you'll notice farther to the south, you can see Little Mount, the Taylorsville area, still seeing some wind with that, but not as strong. Shelbyville and Henry County, so Shelby County and Henry County taking the brunt of this storm now with the stronger winds going on. Let's go back to the south. I want to show you the severe thunderstorm warning that we have across parts of our southern viewing area. There's good old Hodgenville down in LaRue County. Buffalo, you've seen some strong winds. That continues to move into southern Nelson County. There's New Haven, my hometown. You're going to see some winds down there, but not as strong as what we're noting here. Back into Hart County, Bonneville. 55-mile-an-hour winds, again, with as much wind as we've had, and some areas with a wet ground, still 55, 60 miles an hour winds can do some damage, but nothing like what you'd see if you wound up experiencing those 70 to 80 mile per hour winds like some folks could be across parts of Henry County into Shelby County. That's what we're looking at in terms of the velocity. When we look at the radar itself, you're going to see, as far as any flooding concerns, we do have heavy rain falling with these storms along with that lightning, but it's moving at a pretty good clip. So while we have rain falling behind it, flooding, it's not a zero issue, but the main issue is wind. Secondary would be the rotation and the tornadoes. We just haven't had many hail reports out of this today. I know that it's spring break season and a lot of kids may be out of school, but we still have some traffic, and these storms are causing some problems with that. Brian, you've got an eye on the traffic.
Yeah, one thing that can usually stand out, too, when you look at some of these traffic maps is you can get an idea if there's any problems developing. Obviously, it's 5:36 in the afternoon, so hard to tell yet what some of this is rush hour or not. But given the idea there is certainly lighter traffic right now due to spring break, it's certainly worth watching. When you look at the map itself, let me show you the actual traffic map here on Max 2. We look at, especially around the Okolona area, Fern Valley Road, as you head near GE, Newburgh, all the way near the Waterson Expressway. Certainly, there's increased traffic in the area. Now, we don't know the exact cause of this, but it does stand out as some of the worst of the traffic we have in the metro right now when it comes to that. And you notice the crashes, too, that are where the heavier rain was on 65 and along near the Sherman-Minton Bridge. But we'll be watching some of those camera feeds and the traffic sensors, too, to give us an idea if there's any traffic lights out, which I got a feeling there likely are just because of what has happened there with the line of storms that came through the area. I know, Kevin, we've got several different cameras we're watching right now in the feeds in the area. The warning keeps getting extended. That's not going to be a surprise. It's going to keep going, as we mentioned earlier, well south of Cincinnati. It's going to keep going. Yeah,
the latest still includes our viewing area. This is for Henry, Oldham, Shelby, Spencer. That warning goes again until 5:45. Just downstream from that, now including Franklin County in that. So Frankfort would be in on that warning. That warning will continue as well as it pushes through until 6 o'clock. So as this storm moves through, you'll notice we've gone from destructive to considerable on the damage, still with the tornado possible tag, down from 80 to 70 mile per hour wind potential on that. So again, that's the severe thunderstorm warning that we're watching moving across our eastern counties into our southern counties. That warning not quite as robust in terms of wind speed. Nonetheless, it will still impact counties like Nelson, eventually into Washington, Marion, Taylor, Greene, and Adair. So we're not finished tracking these storms through our viewing area. They're past Louisville, the threat of severe weather ending for us, the threat of severe weather ending for southern Indiana and areas west of I-65. So if you're in those zones, you don't have to worry about wind anymore, at least the strongest of the wind. We're still going to have some wind gust. As you can see in Louisville, we're still gusting to 44. Our winds are west at 24. We've had and measured winds that exceeded 78 miles an hour here in Louisville within the last half hour to 45 minutes. We have had some damage and power outages continue. We have a number of crews that have been out as well. They are getting in place to find that damage and sort of report on what has happened across the area. You can see we're filling in those counties I just mentioned with the severe thunderstorm warning. We'll go to that and show you that this will now include parts of Washington, Marion, Greene, Taylor, and Adair, all seeing some of those thunderstorm warnings off to our south. That is where we have the latest warning coming out. That one also in place until 6 o'clock tonight, or until, let me see here. That one will go until 6:15 tonight. So this is the latest. Let's take a look from some of our reports that have been out. This is a tree that has been blown down. And again, this is blocking some traffic. You can see the yellow line. This is Preston and Durrett Lane.
It's not far from Male High School area.
Close to Male High School. So again, that's one sort of tree that's been down, and I'm sure there are many more. Power outages continue to climb across the area because of the high wind that we had. 78, 79 mile an hour winds. We saw that back on March 3rd. They can do some incredible damage, especially with the trees. And now with even more trees leafing out, the wind canopy is a little larger. That means we have more aerial coverage to blow those trees over. I have a feeling we're going to see some problems come out of this. The thing is, it was pretty specific. It wasn't over a very large area like it was back then, but it was a small area. And if it was in that area that you live in, you've likely experienced some damage. We'll continue to see that lightning show up from our radar view. When we look at what's happening just past Louisville, off to the south, just get your bearings, Munfordville, Hart County. There's Greene, Washington, or Greene, Taylor, Marion, Washington, Nelson County, seeing the heaviest of the rain push through, strongest of the winds on that leading edge. Brian?
Yeah, we've got a report here. We got it confirmed, actually. There's, don't know the structure here, but apparently there's been a building collapse that is just west of Iroquois Park. This is going to be in the St. Andrews area, not too far away from Brooklawn Drive. We do have a crew that's on the way. And again, I'm trying to get more details on this. We're now getting some pictures coming in from you guys of some damage not far from the Derby City gaming area on Poplar Level Road. So that's where the core of the wind really showed up, was around Iroquois Park. And then over here, Oklahoma, GE, Mutual, and then there of St. Matthews. Again, we're trying to get more details on this. We got crews kind of going all over the place here, Kevin. But we do know, at least we got that confirmed on a building collapse there on Brookline Drive, which is again St. Andrews area. But don't know the structure of it. Don't know if anyone's hurt. Obviously, those are questions we're trying to also get answered. But we got a crew there.
Yeah, and I tell you, that's going to be the thing. It always is in severe weather as we walk you through what's happening now. And the winds are easing a little bit, but we still have severe winds across the area. Now we're starting to get those damage reports in, whether that's the building collapse, whether that's parts of buildings that have been strewn about. Remember, we were talking about Newburgh, just south of the Waterson, seeing some damage there. We've seen images coming in from you from Burst, and I'll ask the folks in the control room to let me know when we can show some of those. But we appreciate everybody pitching in. On days like today, it's all hands on deck, and that means we need you too. And when you are able to take the Wave Weather app and sort of stay safe from the storm. That's the first thing. Second, if there's damage, take a picture of it, turn your phone sideways, take the picture, and submit it to us. It's easy to do. We see it in real time. That's how Brian knows so much about what's happening. He's standing in front of a computer that's showing pictures of what you're sending coming in, along with a lot of other reports. And I'm looking at a bank of computers off to my side as well. So we have just a tremendous amount of information coming in that we're just sort of trying to let you know what's really happened across the the area. Let's take a view of where we have the strongest winds. Been a minute since we've done that. Again, Louisville finally easing up just a bit. We have severe thunderstorm warnings that continue across our viewing area. I'm going to point out some of the warnings, and let's just talk about where we have the wind. This is the latest warning that includes Henry, Shelby, and Trimble. That would mean places like Eminence, Newcastle, and Shelbyville. It's radar indicated with the tornado possible tag. Wind gusts 60 miles an hour possible. This is pushing past Newcastle. This would be going into parts of Franklin County. Let me show you the wind on that. When we look at the velocity, we can pick out some locations to be most concerned with. I'm pointing out that right into parts of Henry County, we have that wind. That's where we noted the strong wind with rotation as it moved out of Jefferson County, southern Oldham, northern Shelby. Now it's into parts of Henry County. We'll be moving out with severe thunderstorm warnings stretching on across Owen County as well. So that's one area that we're watching. When we pan down, you're going to see other pockets of heavy wind into parts of Shelby County, moving out of northeast Nelson County and into Washington County. Not as strong as what we've seen to the north, but still a push of wind nonetheless. And this is going to move in with winds 50 to 60 miles an hour. That's going to continue even to our south. Places down toward Lebanon, starting to see the wind pick up. Campbellsville, Greensburg, Columbia, you'd be next in line. All of you under the severe thunderstorm warning. And the latest warning, the one we're looking at, goes until 6:15. We have already noted that we've had conditions that were ripe for severe weather. Lots of moisture, lots of wind energy, lots of wind shear in the atmosphere. We added energy by seeing some sun. We have wind and rain in Bardstown. No damage around the court square there. You'll see on our sort of big board the number of warnings that we've had. Most of them starting to expire. The exception would be the ones that we just went through: Franklin, Henry, Shelby, Trimble, Adair, Green, LaRue, Marion, Nelson, and Spencer. When we look at the warnings, they're now moving east of I-65. Lots of wind, lots of lightning. We have seen some damage, and you have too, and you've been sending it to us. You can see from our viewers some of the images that they've been sending. Here's Corydon. Barb sending in this. You can see that broke that tree right off. There it is. We appreciate all of you sending that in. Over in Corydon, you had winds likely 60 plus miles an hour. That one landed on a house, did some roof damage. You can see the sharp edge of that tree still standing. That's where it sort of broke it right off. Wouldn't rule out some of these that had rotation possibly being actual tornadoes that took some of these trees down. Now, to determine that, the National Weather Service has to go out and survey the damage. Trees are somewhat easy because you can view the way those trees have been laid down. If it's in different directions, most of the time, that's an indicator of a tornado. If they're laying all in one direction, that's more of an indicator of straight line winds that have moved through. We appreciate Barb sending in those photos. There's another one from Bobby. Bobby, that tree, it took it right out of the top, looks like, or blew it right off at the base, one of the two, but that one is down. That was from Mount Washington. Right into the subdivision called Autumn Glen. And that tree just blew over. Thanks to Bobby for sending that in. You'll notice down in Okolona, they say, hey, the clouds look weird. Looks like a wall cloud. Could be trying to form a tornado. And indeed, it could have been. We saw that rotation and that strong wind move through Okolona.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of you are chiming in right now everywhere on social media. We understand that tornado sirens are still going off, of course, in the Louisville area. There's no tornado warning anywhere. That has since expired. Technically, again, we've had that warning that came through the area. When I've seen this happen before, when sirens have gone off randomly, especially, or in some cases get stuck, it's usually a power outage that can cause that, where it messes up the main switchboard. I believe MetroSafe controls that. But once there's a malfunction, the other sirens never get the signal to stop going off. So there's a tendency where they will likely keep going. That is possibly what's happening in parts of Louisville. So we understand, we hear your reports, we're getting your calls. But again, just just to confirm there's no tornado happening anywhere right now. Okay, so that was just from earlier, but I know it's a scary sound, but at least want to make sure to mention that, so put some of the fears and ease for those that are still wondering here, especially in Louisville. The power outages, this number is going to keep going up and up and up. We're over 14,000, approaching 15,000. That's about 4% right now of just Jefferson County we're talking about. Now, LG&E is going to have much higher numbers than that as you broaden out. Checking into Bullitt County, about 198. Got a feeling that's going to certainly go up considering the wind fields we were noticing there in Bullitt County, and still in Breckenridge County, about 3,100 at the moment. This will all fill in here the next few moments here as the storms move off to the east. Kevin just showed you all your photos you're sending in. There's trees down all over the place, and this is going to be a common sight for all the reports coming in. So just kind of be careful. As we always say, do not get anywhere around a down power line. Don't touch it. Always a message we hear from LG&E, stay away from it, as I'm sure there's several lines down, especially around Iroquois Park, Okolona, Buchel area. Most of the power grid through that area is above ground, so technically you have a lot of power line poles that can get knocked down, versus other parts of eastern Jefferson County, most of the power grid is underground. So it just depends on your location, of course, but that's certainly more of a common thing, is a lot of power poles in the area that the strongest winds did hit. And your photos, again, they're coming. We haven't heard of anyone hurt, and that's important to note. And I hope that's the storyline we can keep saying on this. As you guys always know this, when we get damage reports, all this stuff can be replaced. We don't want anybody hurt. And certainly we still got severe thunderstorm warnings out. So we still got some strong winds showing up. Not nearly as strong as we had earlier, but still anywhere in the eastern flank of that line as it moves to the east, that's where you still have the chance to get some strong wind gusts. It can still get over 60 miles per hour. I have not had anything yet that has been exceeding that limit since then. I'm watching the Kentucky Mesonet reports. The closest I got, which is still up there, I don't want to downplay it, Shelbyville, 48 miles per hour, and as you get into Lebanon, Marion County, 45. That's still enough wind, certainly, that can cause some down limbs at least, and maybe some power outages. So that line is certainly into Marion County. We'll be watching that as it moves into Washington County there.
All right. Again, while those winds Brian just mentioned are just below severe limits, the warnings continue. They will continue until 6:15. That's the latest time that we have on this warning. So all storms will be out of our viewing area by that point. We are now starting to sort of be in recovery mode for those folks who have had damage. The core of the power outages are very much near the airport. So through the Newburgh area, that is where we've noted the strongest winds as well, because the airport's there. We were able to measure it. 78-mile-per-hour winds. We have other reports coming in, tractor trailers that have possibly been blown over. You can see what that looks like from some of our viewers that have been sending in photos. We've also had some tractor trailers blown over in Boone County, Kentucky, right along the interstate. So that's been another interesting part of this storm system, is that we have had such strong wind, really causing some problems, not only for homeowners, but also those who may be on the roads. You can see the car in this image, crushed. Dean sending that in from El Conquistador Place. That's the tree that was blown over on top of a car there. We've seen time and again the trees coming down this year, it seems. This was up toward French Lick, Indiana. That was just behind the Dairy Queen. That was an image up in Orange County where the trees were blown over onto the power lines. Remember, stay away from power lines. You've got to let the LG&E crews, and there's a live... And this is Fern Valley and Preston. I want to call your attention to the Michelin store. You'll notice the top of that power pole is broken. So whether it was strong winds or a tornado that snapped it, the power line is hanging there. Part of the power pole is hanging there, too. All of the lights are out.
That's one of the bigger intersections in the whole city is right there, Preston, Fern Valley.
Yeah, and what a mess it's going to be with no sort of direction from seeing the lights. You know, I mean, watch this. No one knows when to go. Everybody's supposed to at least make a stop. So you treat it like a four-way stop. Some people just decide to go through. Other people are scared to go. Then I
believe that's looking south on Fern Valley, looking or Fern Valley and Preston. So I believe that's Preston Highway heading southbound as you get away from that intersecting point. So if the wind is blowing, that looks like it would probably be really strong. I would say like a south east wind or due west right in that area? Because they're all leaning in the same direction. So right now, that screams straight line wind set up there, Kevin.
Yeah, and you're right. So as we pointed out earlier, that when you're looking at a batch of trees that have been blown down, sort of easy to say whether it was tornadic or just straight line winds because of the direction that they're laying. If they're laying in sort of different directions over the course of the path, then that would be tornadic. If they are all laying in one direction, straight line, regardless, we know we measured the wind at 78 miles an hour, so that can do some damage. That can snap power lines. I mean, the weight of what the power lines hold, think of that just getting drugged by those powerful winds. In some cases, that's enough tension to break some of the power poles that we've had. That could have been what happened in that instance.
And that's on Max 2, that's the extra intersection, by the way, on traffic, and you could certainly see how everything's kind of just stopped right in that area. Obviously, they had no power. You saw that on the live feed, but just kind of giving you a visual where that is right there, Fern Valley, Preston Highway. The camera was looking this way down Preston, so the power line poles were all basically leaning in this direction over that area. Kind of a wider scope. This is the spot, Kevin, that just keeps standing out right there, anywhere from around Iroquois Park, near Ford, northern side of Okolona, Buchel, all the way in the southern side near the Louisville Zoo Zone. That seems to be one of the spots that we saw quite a bit of a spike, and that's where most of our damage reports are coming in.
Yeah, and I tell you how freakish it is to have had a wind sensor where the strongest winds likely hit. I mean, we can be like, well, that's where the power outages are. Usually it's backwards. We have to say, oh, that's where the power outages are. That must have been where the strongest wind was. Well, today it was like, look at that. We're measuring the wind. We know it's there. And now we're looking at the damage that's coming through. You can see a lot of folks sort of taking a look at those power lines. That's going to take some time for LG&E crews to sort of get back together. First of all, safety hazard when you have things hanging like that. Such a populated area, such a busy intersection. It's going to take some time. I'm sure police will be out there in short order to get it all blocked off so emergency crews can do their job in terms of securing the power. All I can say is stay away from those down power lines. It happens time and again where people get electrocuted by that. We are still tracking storms moving through the area. They are nowhere as strong as they were when they blasted through the Louisville area, though. And want to point out what's happening across the viewing area in terms of the weather. So we've looked at the damage. We know what's moved through, easing quite a bit across parts of Carroll County, moving through Henry County. It's moving out. That warning is going to be shaved off. So that gets rid of the warning, at least in those counties coming up. Let's go back to the south. We go down into parts of Shelby County. Franklin County, still seeing some strong winds push through your area. You want to take a closer look? Let's jump in. We can take a look at the velocity here. You're going to see a pocket of wind moving just north of the capital city. That takes it just north of the airport. We can zoom in even more for the folks that are watching in Franklin County. You can see that storm has passed just to the north. The strongest part of the wind is now approaching 1262. It's going to be near Peaks Mill and Elsinore, and that's going to be working its way over towards Stamping Ground. Strong winds even in Frankfort. We have real-time measurements there as well. We'll get that in shortly. Let's go to the south as we continue to sort of pan down, looking at these pockets of wind through Franklin County. Strong winds. Back over toward the viewing area. Franklin County is in the viewing area. Shelby County is too. The strongest of the winds moving out of Shelby County, moving out of Spencer County, moving out of northeast Nelson County. There's Bloomfield. And we go back down south of Bardstown. We're going to get into Washington County. There's still pockets of heavy wind in Washington County. So from Poland to Litzy to Thompsonville, seeing some pockets of heavy wind approaching Willisburg. All right. Springfield, the bulk of the wind in your county is just north of you. We look to the south, keeping in mind that as we go further south, the radar beam gets higher in the sky, all right, because the earth is curved, believe it or not. We look at Raywick, St. Mary, Lebanon, seeing some of that wind there, but nothing too intense. Same story as we get down into parts of Greene and Taylor counties and eventually Adair County. So those are some areas that we're watching. Brian, once this line passes, it'll all be out of here in terms of severe weather, but the wind may not be. We still have some gusty winds, which could impact the crews responding to these down trees and power lines. With those winds 30 to 40 miles an hour, it's going to take some time for that to die down.
Not to mention the constant rain that's going to keep falling in the area. The most recent gust we got was about 52 miles per hour in Frankfort. That is below severe limits. Most other gusts have been around 30. You can't let our guard down. But one thing to note here, because this line pushed out so much through Louisville, the high wind event that we had passed through that's now south of Cincy and starting to fade, is a good sign that the southern portion of this line now is dragging. The front is stalling out. So there is another issue we need to at least mention and be aware of, and that will be for those of you south and east of the parkways. This line of storms has only got just a little bit more real estate to go, and then it's going to stop, and then the rain's going to keep training now over the spot. So certainly, we haven't talked much about flooding, but just be aware there is a flood watch south of the parkways. That will likely be one of the next headlines Kevin will be facing in addition to the wind, but certainly that southern part of the line, just that northern piece took so much out of it. It's just that front's just kind of dragging now. It's a very common setup. Unfortunately, we're seeing that in some of the data trends, which make sure everyone's careful, especially as we get toward the darkest of night coming up in a couple hours.
Yeah, it's sort of give and take. It's the whole forward motion of that northern part that picked up the momentum and caused the problems across Jefferson County and parts of Floyd and Harrison counties back to our west. But it's also started to ease what's happening to our south. Now, if it had all maintained, shared the momentum along that line, we all would have sort of spread that energy out across that area. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We're getting reports out of Frankfort. I told you we had an airport there so we can get a real-time measurement. 52 mile per hour winds there. Again, just slightly below severe limits, but still enough to do some damage. So the idea is, as these storms move off to the east, they have weakened considerably from where they were in Louisville. 78 mile per hour winds here. If you're just joining us, you're late to the party. We've been going on with nonstop severe weather coverage since we had the tornado warning. In fact, we've been on all afternoon with our newscast preparing you days in advance, saying we've got an alert day for today, Wednesday. It was a heads up that we could have some strong storms moving in. Obviously, that has happened. Now you're doing your part, sending in some of those images from what it's like where you live, and we appreciate that. It really helps give us an idea of what we're looking at. We want to share some of those with you. We go to our photos from the viewers, giving an idea of the trees that have been obliterated once again. This comes to us from Dale over in Audubon Parkway. What a beautiful area this is. I hate to see trees down anywhere, but Audubon Park and the Audubon Parkway, just beautiful with the trees that line the streets there. And that is a very large tree that has been blown down. Obviously, that's one of many that we've had. There's another one over in Colonial Hill. And let me say thanks to Taryn and Steve and everybody else. You're putting the locations in and what it is. That is so helpful to us. We go down to Corydon, seeing some of the baseball field there. Heavy rain is falling, but you can see the fencing. That netting sometimes grabs the wind. It's not as easy for the wind to flow through the chain link fence if it has the netting, and consequently, it can take part of that fencing down. Appears to what may have happened there. Lisa sending in this tree branch down. Looks like it may be across the driveway. And in Fern Valley and Preston, those power lines were the ones that we've been showing you where traffic is just a mess, and you're going to just have to stay away from that area as the cleanup continues. Those are some of the areas where we have as those very powerful winds made their way across Jefferson County. So those are your reports. We appreciate you sending those in. For folks that may be wondering how to do it, easy to do. If you have the Wave Weather app, scroll down, you can tap on submit photo. Boom, take the picture. Works good if you turn the phone sideways, fills up the TV screen. We appreciate any of them, though, so thank you for helping us out today. The showers and thunderstorms continue to our south with that warning that goes for another 14 minutes. All warnings will expire at 6:15. We have crews across the area, too. I'm wondering if we can show some of the live images from where those folks are. The storm tracker is out. I know that
we do have someone near, I believe, near that building issue that was the class report we got. Now, would be close, I believe, to Iroquois Park in the St. Andrews area. Can we check on that? I'm not sure if it's the right feed or not. if it's still up or not. But that's the last report I believe we got. Okay. Do we have a location exactly?
So it looks like there are several storm chasers that may be out. Obviously, that's Fern Valley Road where Justin is, and then this is the Fern Valley Preston area.
That's the whole. There's the Zaxby's over there. I know where that is. It's right there, that intersecting point near Preston. While we're monitoring those feeds, Kevin, real quick here on Max 2. Let me go ahead and clear some spots to put some ease to some folks who are watching. I'm going to clear several counties here, okay? I'm going to clear Grayson, Hardin, Nelson, Spencer, Shelby, Oldham into Carroll County. LaRue as well, now clear. And then Hardin County, as I mentioned, Breckenridge and Meade and all of Indiana, all that zone, you guys are good. You're fine. It's mainly just rain and some gusty winds that could go over 30 miles per hour, but nothing that can cause damage. For those of you still around the Capitol, all the way down through Marion County, Washington County, Greene, Taylor, and Adair, unfortunately, you're still going to be in that flow. You still could get some damaging winds because that front is putting the brakes on. So therefore, you're going to have to deal with that severe potential a bit longer. Therefore, your severe thunderstorm watch will also continue. Not only do you have the warning, but the watch will likely keep going for a bit longer as well. But everywhere else, I just mentioned, you guys are clear, you're safe, you're okay now from any more damaging weather taking place. Unfortunately, with the rain now at play, that's going to make it a bit difficult. I know a lot of your instinct is going to be to look out the window or get into the car and start driving around trying to look at damage. Please do not do that. Please give emergency crews, first responders, give them the room right now to get where they need to get to, because we don't know what else is happening here with the damage that took place, and we don't want to crowd the roads up. I know it's a busy rush hour type of setup, but if you don't have to travel at all, please do not, because there's going to be a kind of a touch and go. They got a couple hours of daylight here to work with, Kevin, to try to get to the rough spots, the hot spots, especially with power lines down, to make sure everyone's safe. So we don't want to make that worse.
All right. I was just looking at some of the information coming in from the newsroom. We're going to get you to some of those hot spots where we have the building collapse. Looks like we have another one over towards Seneca High School and Meadow Drive. So we want to be able to show you what's happening in those areas, as well as what's happening across all of Louisville. But we took a hit today. We had 78-mile-per-hour winds that have downed trees and power lines in several areas of the county, in particular along the Watterson Expressway, not far from the airport where we measure that wind, obviously, and that's where we have certainly seen the greatest concentration of power outages. Now we're focused to the south. These thunderstorms, the latest winds coming in with them have been upwards of 45 to 50 miles per hour, showing signs consistently of weakening, and those continue to move across parts of Washington, Marion, down into Taylor, Greene, and eventually Adair County. Those will be moving through. And while they are severe thunderstorm warnings, they certainly have relinquished the power of what we had here earlier today. And that was intense. So our severe thunderstorm warnings were a little bit different. And we note that when we can look at the description of the warnings. So let me explain that, because a lot of folks may not know this. When the warnings are issued, they come out with information. And you can see, for instance, on this one, this is going for Grant and Owen counties. This one to the south, for instance, well, let me go back. These are some of the damage reports that we've had coming in from Imping. You can see a number of the trees that are down, trash cans being blown, and so forth. Now, when we look at, and I'm going to center this warning up, so bear with me just a second. I'll get it over here in front of me so we can take a closer view. That's the warning we're looking at. And I was talking about some of these warnings come with information that's helpful from the National Weather Service. You'll notice it's radar indicated. It doesn't talk about it being potentially catastrophic or destructive. This is just a general severe thunderstorm warning, wind speeds up to 60 miles an hour. It's something to be aware of. It's something where you make sure you stay away from windows. This isn't something that's typically going to peel a roof off or snap a power line. Typically doesn't even harm trees all that much. Now, sometimes as those warnings are upgraded, maybe it goes 70, and in our case, it was up to 80-mile-per-hour winds. That's when you really have to pay attention and say, okay, this one's a little different than most. I need to pay close attention. I've got to take shelter. Now, we're at 6:06 in the afternoon. Most of the warnings are going to expire. You can see we've got you covered on a number of cameras from our SkyTrack cameras, and we have 10 of those. We've got one that's on down in Bardstown. We've got one that's been at Fern Valley, keeping an eye on all that traffic and the power lines that have been down. We've got several other crews that are headed to other locations to show some of the damage that's happened across Jefferson County, including Seneca High School, including some areas down toward the Newburgh area. So that's where we're sort of monitoring for the damage, and we've already seen a lot of it. But there's more. And for those folks to the south, these storms are passing through. And within the next 10 minutes, they'll be out of the area. John Bowl is in the studio. At 6:15, we're going to regroup. We'll present to you Wave News at 6 in a condensed version that will be mainly storm driven. We'll give you an update on the forecast, what to expect for tonight. And we'll look forward to the Easter weekend. Now, that's coming up in just a few minutes. And we'll sort of bounce through the county and show you the damage that we've had. So that's sort of the setup for what's coming our way. So another 7 minutes of Brian and I talking about what's happening and showing you what's happening, and then we'll get you to a Wave News. Brian's working on some of the wind stats that we've had, and we'll jump over to him in just a couple of minutes to talk more about that. Very impressive numbers. Are you finished?
Yeah, we can go ahead.
Sorry, I saw you making the graphic.
Well,
go ahead.
A couple things I want to point out. First off, probably more pressing. John and I were just discussing here. Our crews, are trying to work with emergency responders, try to get to some of the damage reports, make sure everyone's okay. But there is so much traffic out there. A lot of gridlock is happening. A lot of traffic lights that are out. It is a mess. Again, I just want to stress again, if you do not have to travel in certainly central Jefferson County, but anywhere in the metro, do not. It is a mess. You're not going to get anywhere. There's no traffic lights working, especially in Hy-Vee, Butcher, Okolona area. You're just going to sit in traffic. So don't kind of make things worse by venturing out. If you're just curious or anything, if you don't need to go out, give crews time to get the roads clear. All right, let me show you the wind speeds. This was a record map. I didn't think we would be showing this fast. I thought it would be another 10 years before we did. But here we go. The wind gusts, the strongest ever for all the international. Since 1970, 84 miles per hour. That took place in 1971. Of course, we had the tornado outbreak in 74 that also hit that same level. But we just got up there to that list of 79 miles per hour back on March 3rd. Now 78 miles per hour makes the list on that. I believe, I'm trying to do a quick
Top 5 wind gusts.
Top 5. And we were able to get to the top 5 list twice in about 32 days. That is record in itself there. But again, anytime we talk about severe thunderstorm warnings that are coming out for 60-mile-per-hour winds, that's the level that can do just a lot of damage in the area. You get up to over 75 and certainly close to 80. We've already been through this, so we know what it can do. Kevin's right. It wasn't every single county this time. It wasn't the entire viewing area facing this. It was very localized, but a very highly populated area in central Jefferson County, and that's what's really going to stand out. We're now getting more of those reports. Weather Service now hearing, of course, about that report from MetroSafe about that structure collapse. It looks like it's in the 6700 block there in Brookline. Okay, where was that again? Lanton and Oak Valley. Let me see where that's at. Kevin, I'll let you kind of.
Yeah, let's just punch up the live pictures. At this point, the bulk of the storms are over. We've talked about the wind. There's the tree that's down. Lanton is the cross street there. It's in a residential neighborhood. It's crushed part of the mailbox you can see, but you'll notice as we pan over and show you this tree, just how large it is. And again, with the leaves sort of starting to leaf out, that's more area for the wind to grab hold of. This large tree is now on the ground. I don't know if we have a reporter there. If we do, we'll talk to them. But this is just a photographer that's showing us from the base of that tree, where it just took it from the roots.
I believe that's a Highview area.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense, close to where that would be with that pocket of heavy wind. Again, we saw 78-mile-per-hour winds, and that can down the largest of the trees, as we've seen. We also know, as Brian was talking about, that structure collapse is over off of Brooklawn Drive in the 6700 block. We've got a crew that's headed there, too. You'll be seeing more images of that coming in. This is another tree that they found on the way to that structure collapse. Take a look at what that looked like. And you can see we've got a number of trees down once again. This one, another large. It's just it's the same one that we were talking about. So they came across that on their way to that structure collapse. Remember, we told you with the street lights out, there's lots of traffic backup. So navigating your way around the city right now, especially in the areas without power, is very difficult.
We got another structure collapse from Metro Safe. This is in J-Town off Decimal Drive.
Okay, so off of Decimal Drive, you get out toward the
Electron Drive area. Is that the same?
Yeah, very much
area?
the industrial park
Yeah,
area. So we've got another building collapse. That's 2 building collapses. Whatever that means, we don't know because we haven't seen them yet, but structures have been somehow compromised by that strong wind. We have 2. One that we mentioned was coming off of Brooklawn Drive, and the other one was coming out of Decimal Drive. So 2 structure collapses in addition to the trees that we have down, the power lines and power poles that have been snapped, and we've been showing you what that looked like. I don't know if we have video of what that looked like on Fern Valley, but that's been super impressive to see, where you had that top of that power pole sort of held up in the power lines while the lines were still what appeared to be up, but obviously some major problems going on taking down the power. We're going to show you all of that. You'll also notice that the warnings to our south, while they are still technically in place, these storms continue to weaken as they move to the east. So I want to just point out we're not ignoring those storms because of the damage that has happened here. It's now the critical part of what we have to do is keep people safe, away from the power lines, away from the structures that have the potential to collapse, and that's why we continue. We're going to keep it for another 3 minutes here. John Bull is standing by. He's got a whole rundown of what damage the newsroom has been working on and where our crews are. We're going to check in with those folks coming up here in just a couple of minutes. We've got the forecast that'll take us past the Easter weekend. Finally, some calmer weather already starting to take shape once we get this last line of storms past us. Brian, what do you have?
Yeah, everything's starting to quiet down the severe weather reports. I've been looking at the radar trends. You're looking at just even rainfall intensities east of it, just becoming more widespread. Even in Louisville, again, this is all redeveloping again, but it will be a general rain that's going to take place over the area. I've been watching the wind fields. The numbers have really dropped compared to what we had earlier. The last strong wind gust that I saw was that 52-mile-per-hour wind gust that was a little closer to the capital itself into Frankfort. Still some gusty winds being noted, and I would say this gust, actually, I can actually check that for you all, into areas, I would say, into central Kentucky. All right, I'm not sure when the report was on this one. This is actually ahead of the line into Columbia at about 53 miles per hour. That could be an outflow that actually came through because the line stalled. The squall line did stall just northwest of you into Greene County. So the wind, even though the line itself puts the brakes on, it's kind of like you see in, I don't know, cartoons, the best way I can describe it, something that tries to stop something that still keeps going out of your hands, basically, and when you drop. And that's kind of what's happened to the wind. The line stopping, the wind just keeps falling forward there, and that's still the outflow that's pushing through. But if that is the case, and it's likely the case, that means that will be it. That 53 was a surge. We're going to see that number drop off dramatically, so that should be a vast improvement here from the rest of the evening. So I think we're finally on the other side of the coin now, on the wind side of this, but it's still got to deal with some heavier rain and with so many power lines that are down. That is the danger part of this. Kevin said it several times. We've said it several times. Just stay away from those down lines. You don't know if it's live or not. You do not want to take the risk on this whatsoever.
This is St. Andrew's Church Road,
Okay.
Another very large tree down. If I'm seeing this right from the call center, 911 call center, Metro Safe, we've got another structure collapse at Cargo Court in J-Town. So that would make 3 that they're reporting. We've mentioned those. We said that Brooklawn Drive had one, Decimal Drive, and now Cargo Court. 3 different structure collapses that we've heard from Metro Safe. Our crews are trying to get to those. Some of those have been a little elusive in finding, and some may not be as robust as it may sound.
All warnings are out now, by the way.
Yeah, and all of the warnings in our viewing area have ended right on schedule at 6:15. All right, we've got the damage to show you. We are going to kick it over to Wave News for a condensed version at 6. We will go through the weather and the Easter weekend coming up, but Wave News at 6 starts with John Bull right after the break.